Local and live, covering Franklin and Washington counties, it's Let's Talk TriState with Tiny and Katie.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Tri-State, all powered by Home Right Windows and Doors in Waynesboro, the right choice, winner in the 2024 Best of the Tri-State Awards. And we are joined by a repeat guest, Jess Doyle. Her husband, though, she brought along, Brett. You are caregivers with Family Care Services, online familycareservices.org. You were here on their behalf. When we had, Jess, when we had you here last time, we said we'd love to have you back because we have questions. Now, sadly, Katie is not with us today. She's a bit under the weather.
No, I hope she feels better.
Sad.
I do too, and I feel like she's the one who had the most questions. So I'm going to try to do it justice because I can sometimes easily get inside of her head and know some of her thoughts. But take us through Family Care Services first, Jess, if you would. What is the mission of Family Care Services, and what are we here to talk about today?
So Family Care Services, they're a foster and adoption agency, and we work with the Life Sharing Program, which is a program for adults with disabilities, intellectual disabilities specifically, to be able to basically live with a family and, share their life, and, we take care of all their needs and their appointments. And so it's really kind of geared towards getting the individuals out of like group home situations, even though, group homes are great and we need those too, but not everybody is appropriate for a group home. And
They're more of a, I guess, intended to be kind of a stop along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, and well, sometimes they do end up in them permanently, but I feel like the program that we're part of really lets the clients get a lot more individual attention and nurturing and things that they wouldn't necessarily get in a group home situation.
Yeah.
A lot more one-on-one interaction.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a group home where you have maybe one caretaker that's taking care of six or eight
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
So
the ratio is better,
Absolutely.
person to person. So we talked about this before, and I want to make sure that we go over this again. What are the age ranges that Family Care Services helps when it comes to the adult program? So I know a lot of people think it may be, teens, early 20s, but you said that there are some folks who are into their 60s, 70s. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The Life Sharing Program is specifically, I believe, 18 and over.
18 and over, okay.
So like our clients are 27 and 49.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And what are some of the conditions so that our audience can have a bit of a picture of this? What are some of the conditions that the clients they have?
Our young man that lives with us has Down syndrome and intellectual disabilities is what they call it. Sure. On paper. And then our lady has autism and profound intellectual disabilities. Okay. So she's nonverbal, totally dependent for all care, all that type stuff.
And your young man, how old is he?
27.
27. And the lady is how old?
49.
49, okay. So you can see, it does run in the gamut of ages here.
Yep.
Who was and by the way, I've told Jess and Brett prior to recording today that I want you to be as honest as you're willing to be. Sure. Certainly you don't share anything that you don't want. We're obviously not going to violate any trust that anyone has. But as with anybody, I think there would be questions about what you do. I think the first thing that can be said, if I don't say it now, I don't want to forget to say it, is you have to have a good heart to do this. You have to have a good heart to open up your home to someone who does not suffer from any disabilities. Right. Let alone folks that do, because along with that come challenges, I'm sure. So, Brett, let me ask you, first of all, let me say this. Who initiated wanting to pursue this?
Well, honestly, we were approached by a friend of Jess's that was actually working for the agency and thought to herself that we would be a good fit to become part of the agency and work with the people that are there.
And what was your first thought, Brett?
I was all for it, honestly. My mom years ago, my mom and stepdad was in the agency, and they actually did foster care for the children that were disabled, and I've had disabled people in my life ever since I was a kid. So, just I've always had a place in my heart for it.
So this was an extension, really, of the life that you've always had.
Yep.
It merely is now you're the one being able to call the shots in your scenario. Jess, how about you? When you first heard about potentially doing this, when that friend said, "Hey, well, what do you think? You guys should do this."
I mean, I really jumped at the opportunity too, and got into like they do information nights at the agency every so often, and when we went to an information night and got information and got the ball rolling on the application, and I didn't grow up with the same, exposure to disabled individuals, but my mom also worked with disabled individuals, just not in like a foster care situation. But so I met a lot of her individuals. She would bring them to the house to swim sometimes, and so I always kind of had that place in my heart too. So when we found out, I never even knew that this was a thing. I never knew that there was such a program. So when we found out about it, I thought, it was a really great opportunity to give somebody a family. And in the case of both of our individuals who don't have any family, it was a perfect fit.
When you've been here before, the main question that I have had, above and beyond everything, is what circumstances transpire for someone to wind up in the program, to be a client, to live with someone. I understand that there are those extreme cases of abandonment, or I think we hear the stories of leaving a baby at the doorstep, that type thing. And I'm sure that I know that has happened. I'm sure it perhaps still happens, as unfortunate as it is. But we were told in one of our earlier interviews with one of the directors and owners of Family Care Services that sometimes, and a lot of times, it's adults who find themselves, their family needs to basically have them be somewhere else. And my question basically has been, like, what are the reasons that you have heard of those circumstances happening? Like, what causes someone to say about, and I'm not downing anybody, mind you, this is just, again, for the sake of conversation, answering questions. What causes someone to say, if it's their own child, I understand challenges, but to say, this is just not working out?
So in our particular situation, like our clients, one has been in foster care all of her life. So she was actually abandoned as a baby. We don't really know all of the history. And our other client came from a neglectful, not a good situation. He had to be taken by Adult Protective Services and things like that. But what I've seen is a lot of times either behaviors get worse, more challenging. Parents are having a hard time managing behaviors, even with the supports they get. Sometimes they're not able to get the support that they need,
Well, not to
through
mention
separate programs. And
parents are getting older.
Exactly. That was the next thing I was going to say.
And their children are getting older and perhaps getting bigger. So those physical challenges that the parent, there comes a point where it's the law of diminishing returns, right?
Yes.
They intersect, and it's going the opposite way, where the child can be overtaking in a physical way, not meaning to. They can't help it, and then the parents find themselves, I physically can't do this. And I'm sure that's not an easy decision to make.
No.
But you've told me before that there are certain circumstances with clients where their families are still parts of their lives. It's just physically can't live with them.
Right. Yeah, there are a lot of, like I said, our individuals don't have any family that are involved with them, but there are a lot of clients that, they still have.
They may live with a family like us for most of the week, and on the weekends they may go with their original family and spend the weekend.
They call it their natural supports, basically.
Gotcha.
Like, so they might go with them for the weekend, or just like go shopping for a couple hours or something like that. But for whatever reason, the family is not actually able to take care of them
In a full-time, 24/7 capacity. Brett, what was your primary concern that you may have had? I understand that you said you were all for it, you were in for it, but I think anytime you are taking someone into your house, there has to be some level of concern. Not that you're not going to do it, not that you don't want to do it.
The biggest concern that I had getting into the program was going to be the support system that was going to be behind it. You know, what if we need time off? What if it becomes overwhelming to us? And throughout the process, we've, you know, helped some other people get certified and everything to be able to help us. Mm-hmm. So we have a support system now that is pretty solid. I mean,
take us through, Brett, if you would, your average day. Now, this is essentially your full-time job, is that correct?
Well, actually, both of us work part-time.
Okay.
And we kind of just balance when she's at work, I'm at home, or vice versa. And then we have her sister helps us out, and she'll come on days where we both have to be at our other jobs. So, like today, this morning, I was working at my job where I work with mobility vehicles.
Sure.
And on a typical day at home, you know, it's get up first thing in the morning, get both of our clients up and out of bed, get them changed and dressed, so on, get them their medicine, get them their breakfast, and then do some kind of activity throughout the day with them, keep them entertained. And then it's lunchtime, and after lunchtime, you know, another activity, try to stay busy.
Sometimes multiple appointments throughout the week.
Appointments are always a big thing.
We have some that are far away, so sometimes we have to manage, you know, you need to be home with this client so I can take the other client to Hershey or York or wherever we need to go.
What type of support is provided to you that's more glaring, that okay, thank goodness we have this from Family Care Services, because were it not for that, this may be an impossible task?
Our social worker, honestly, she's just great. She does anything that I need her to do, gets me anything you know, even though it's like if we need respite care, it's kind of our responsibility to try to get it, but she'll do anything that she can to help me, give me all the numbers, reach out to people herself. You know, I know that if in an emergency I could call her in the middle of the night and with whatever I would need. She's just been, and Jess too, I mean, she's the supervisor of the program, but she actually was our social worker when we started, and then she moved up into the role that she has now, and she's been a great support too. Same thing, I always know if I need something, I can count on her.
Brett, what was the biggest challenge for you that you said, you know, I'm all in, but once it finally reared its head and it was, you know, settled in, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Well, maybe I wasn't prepared for that.
I mean, I really can't think of anything. I actually really enjoy it.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure you do.
I mean, sometimes, it can be stressful sometimes. I mean, all clients have their own attitudes and problems and temperaments and things like that. There's days that are really good, there's days that are really bad, but when it comes down to it, you know, you can see that what you're doing is helping somebody, so it makes it worth it.
At what point, or do you see a point where, I mean, I understand that physically you couldn't, but is there do you have any timeline on both of you continuing to provide this service? Is it something have you sat down and said, well, you know, almost like a retirement plan?
Like a 10-year plan or something? I mean, as long as we're able to do it and it's worth it, I mean.
Yeah. And your clients, I'm assuming, they're part of your family.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
They go to all of our family events, you know, as much as we're able to. We take them on family trips. There's, like I said, they don't have anybody to go with, you know, so like we just had the holidays. They don't have anybody to go with for the holidays. They go to all of our,
come see them or anything else.
So they go to all our family functions and they're treated just like
part of the
like
family.
us, like, you know.
Which is as it should be.
Yeah.
If you're in a program like that, then, you know, you're welcoming.
That's the whole point of it, is to make them part of your life and your family.
And I find, as I have the last couple of times that we've had Family Care Services on the program, is my mind wanders to were it not for the program, what would these folks do? You know, where would they be? And I group home, I know.
Group homes, state facilities.
Yeah, and it's to think that they, you know, not being able to get inside someone's head, but I'm sure that it is just a frightening proposition to be bounced around. That's a frightening proposition for me.
Yeah, for somebody that doesn't understand what's going on.
Exactly. Great point, Jess, is that, you know, I can't imagine what that must be like for them. So to suddenly land in a stable environment that you guys provide, I'm sure has to be the biggest breath of fresh air. And they are so dependent on you that if they woke up tomorrow and you weren't here, their life is completely upheaved. I mean, it's upheaval.
Right?
Especially our boy. He's very, very attached to us, and he's the one that came from a pretty bad situation. So, yeah,
What's the best?
Get very far without us.
What's the best part? Brett, we'll start with you. What's the best part of all of it?
Seeing their expressions, the looks on their faces when we take them and do things with them.
Or just when you come home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just when you come home and they see you,
Right,
you know, and they want a hug or anything like that. It just makes you feel good.
You bring up an interesting point. I can imagine is that, you know, typically, you know, like when I come home and my wife's home, it's, you know, hey, how are you? It's you know, there's not really that, you know, excitement there, which is fine. That's life.
Right.
But to your point, every time you come home, it's like probably coming home for the first time, and you've been away for a year,
To
right?
small kids, like that's what it's like.
Yes.
It's like coming home to small kids, and they're just so happy to see you, so excited to see
You might have only been gone for 3 hours or 4 hours in the day, but as soon as you come home, it's the same way. It's like the kids and the dogs, they all greet you the same way. It's all excitement and out of control.
You are the sun in their world. You know, their world revolves around the care that you provide, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that you do. I consider it the Lord's work, quite honestly, and I'm so glad that folks such as you exist, and you are one of many, but many more are needed.
Absolutely.
Always.
How would anyone go about doing that? Is that you said before you guys did
an information night?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they put that information on their website, but I know a lot of times, like their Facebook or you just calling the number on their web page, you could get more information on when their information nights are. I'm pretty sure that they usually share it on Facebook though.
Okay.
And I'm not positive on how often it is. I want to say like once every month or every other month.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
They do an information night, and you go, and they do talk about both programs, the foster care and the life sharing, but it's really good just to go and kind of just get the basics. They, you know, talk about a little bit about what the program's all about, a little bit about, I'm sorry.
Responsibilities.
Your responsibilities and just
paperwork.
And I'm sure they're very upfront and honest. Like, look, because you want to be, because like we said, these people are going to be coming into your life. The last thing we want to do is get someone to you, get a client to you, for you to turn around a week later and be like, this is just not going to. Well, I didn't expect this.
That's another thing I do want to mention is they work very well with the families to find out, you know, what's going to work best for you, and, you know, how the client's going to do in your home. You know, they spent a lot of time with our first client just making sure that we were going to be comfortable because she had a lot of medical stuff going on, and just making sure it was a right fit for us, because that you don't want that to happen. You don't want them to not have a good transition and them to be moving, you know, again in a month or whatever, because that's not a stable environment then.
Not to mention, these folks are vulnerable of the vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And they will go where they're led. And that's a massive amount of trust to be placed on a person to lead them where they need to go. It's also trust from your clients that you are, that I mean, I wouldn't get that excited about my wife coming home, but they get excited about Brett coming home, about Jess coming home, because they know that everything moves based on you. Yep. Their next meal comes from you. Their next bath comes from you. Their direction in life comes from you. So it's this, you know, like I said, vulnerable of the vulnerable, and you folks, Brett, Jess, you represent Family Care Services and your, we'll call it profession, very well. So I'm very thankful for what you do, and I wish you many more years of being able to do it and much success. And if anyone would like information, the website is familycareservices.org. Jess, Brett, thank you so much for joining us today on Let's Talk TriState.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk Tri-State.
If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Tri-State, call 717-597-9200 or email letstalk@921thegoat.com.
I'm Nick Seco from Home Right Windows and Doors, and we're located in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. So we do vinyl replacement windows, we do steel and fiberglass entry doors, we do aluminum storm doors, and we do sliding patio doors, all made by Provia. The windows are a vinyl replacement window, and it could be anything from double hungs to casements to bay and bow windows and everything in between. So when somebody calls in the office and needs an estimate, they get Roxanne on the phone typically, and she would schedule an appointment for me to come out and take some measurements, provide some literature, go through what options we have, and then I would follow up within about 24 to 48 hours with an estimate with all the details of the products as well as the installed price. I find that we're typically much more affordable than the companies that you see advertising on TV or in a lot of other places. If they're spending a lot of advertising dollars, obviously they're passing those costs on to their consumers. You could go to our website at homerightwaynesboro.com, or you could call us at 717-749-4874.
Local and live, covering Franklin and Washington counties, it's Let's Talk Tri-State with Tiny and Katie.
Let's talk Tri-State.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Tri-State, all powered by Home Right Windows and Doors in Waynesboro, the right choice winner in the 2024 Best of the Tri-State Awards. Joining us now is Tim Stenger. He is the president of Premier HVAC Services. Tim, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is awesome to be here. We are approaching, as a matter of fact, we are in this. This week is some record cold that we're having. We're in the mid to low teens. And now's the time where HVAC is probably about as important as the opposite when we're in the dog days of summer and we need the AC on, and now we need the heat. So when it comes to Premier HVAC Services, take us through that. How long have you been involved with that company and all the way from the beginning to where we are now?
Yeah, so originally I got into the HVAC business in about 25 years ago. Started through the career tech here in Chambersburg and pursued that through college, through a HVAC program, and went ahead and worked for a couple different companies, and ultimately found myself wanting to start my own business, which I did back in 2012. So we've been growing strong since then. Gaining more and more knowledge, more and more skilled people to help out and be able to go out there, get into homes, take care of issues, all your heating and cooling, all of those things.
Now, let me ask you this so I don't forget. Are you in need of service techs? Are you hiring? Are you always looking for someone?
Yeah, we're always going to be looking for top talent. That's what we're looking for. These days it's hard to come by.
Yeah.
There's,
why is that though?
Without getting too deep into it, the blue collar trades had kind of taken a bad rap for a little while, and so there's a kind of a hole, in generational hole there where a lot of people just weren't going and pursuing those type of positions.
Yeah. The skilled trades, as it were.
The skilled trades, yeah. So, more recently, it's coming to light. There's a lot of folks that are retiring and getting out of the blue collar trades, and there haven't been a lot of people that were stepping in to take that place.
Yeah.
It can be difficult. It can be challenging. It's a very unique trade to be in. It's tough work. It's out in some harsh conditions. Very cold, very hot conditions. Hands on, and you got to be very skilled in many areas. It's not just putting your hands on equipment and changing parts, and
Sure.
it's talking to customers and being able to solve the customer solutions or problems with
Right.
solutions.
Well, it's one of those businesses where the company takes the business to the client,
Yeah.
as opposed to the client traveling to the business.
Yep. Yeah. So you're out. It's not like you're always around a full team of support directly with you. We do have a great team that does support each other and work with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're in a van and you're out going into customers' homes, and it's always something new. It's
Yeah.
not repetitive. It's you're always looking for different things, and every unique scenario is different.
And that it absolutely is. So I think when we all think of HVAC, we think of the heating, cooling. But what services do you provide? Is it just service calls? Is it installation? Do you do vent work? Take us through what Premier HVAC offers.
Yeah. So all of the above plus some. Pretty much anything you can think of regarding heating or cooling, we're able to take care of. So it's mainly in residential and then some small commercial applications we deal with. But mainly our key is to focus on homeowners and their unique challenges and overcoming those. So whether it's having a heating or a cooling malfunction that needs addressed right away, we have emergency service that we can respond techs out to, get those problems resolved. And then of course replacement equipment. So equipment breaks down, it becomes old and things happen. New efficiencies and new technologies and things take its place. So we're able to provide multiple solutions for replacement options as well as new installations. If you may not have heating, or most people have heating,
Right.
But a lot of people still don't have cooling in certain homes. So we have solutions for that as well with a new installation with air conditioning, mostly your we call air to air, but we also deal with hydronics, which is boiler systems, hot water. So we also do some water heating solutions that kind of tie in with that.
Okay. So almost a little bit of plumbing, if you.
A little bit of plumbing, yeah. Mainly when it deals with either heating or hot water, then we're able to jump in there and find a solution for that as well.
Okay, very good. So if I need a hot water heater replaced, that is a service that you would offer, not just coincidental that you could take care of it.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
And there's many options even when it comes to water heaters.
Sure.
Most people don't think of it as something with different options. It
Yeah.
seems to be cut and dry, but no, with new technologies around, there's tankless options.
Yeah.
There's heat pump options. There's a lot of great incentives for higher efficiency options like that as well.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Premier HVAC, we have a lot of brands that are available in the market for our heating and cooling systems. Do you handle service and installation on all of them?
Yeah, so we'll be able to work on any brand that's out there. There's a handful that we kind of specialize in and deal with more closely, but we can work with any brand. We can support anybody's warranty. So if somebody else installed it, that's no problem. We'll be able to work on it. We'll be able to honor the manufacturer's warranty, be able to process those and take care of any things that come up as far as that goes.
Okay, we hear a lot of. I'm a big YouTube watcher, and coincidentally, we're obviously on YouTube right now. But one of the things that I love watching are people who are converting vans, who are taking and doing the tiny homes. Now, I personally have no desire to do that, but I love watching it. And you'll also see folks who are renovating older homes, and there's just not space to run new ductwork or ductwork, as it were, and they opt for mini splits. That's something you can also help with?
Yeah, it's a very popular option. It's becoming more and more mainstream. It was different. It was a change at first. A lot of people didn't like the look and feel of that, but honestly, it's a very, very good solution when it comes to not being super invasive in the house of running big ducts and having to cover them. Cut into closets and rooms and bulkheads, and these units are extremely efficient. You have control over each and every individual area. So rather than having like one main control in your home and every room is at its mercy, each of those units inside has its own temperature control.
Right, and it's usually controlled by an app now.
Yeah. A lot of them you can even control via app. That's right.
And I know a lot of folks didn't want the the big unit hanging on the wall. But see, now they have ones where that fit nicely between the ceiling, the joists, you know, and just right in there.
Yep, there's, you know, what you would see is your what we call high walls, you know, where they're visible on the wall. There's ones now that, you know, they tuck into the ceiling. Others that are, you know, kind of more of a floor model where they're kind of low on the wall. So there's even options for, you know, ducting or tying multiple units together. So it's a very very comprehensive solution. You know, lots of options.
And are you getting a lot of calls for those?
We do. We put in quite a few of those.
Really? What's the typical? So I know what I see on YouTube, but around here, what is the typical reason, I guess you would say, that someone is opting for that solution?
Yeah. So typically, that is a solution for someone who might not have ductwork, right? So ductwork it can be large. You know, it has to be ran the whole way through the house. So if it's not existing, it becomes very challenging, you know, invasive into the home, taking up space. Can also be very, very labor intensive, so it can get expensive. So this is a great solution to be able to provide, you know, cooling into the home without having to do full out duct system and cut all through the house and have all that expense.
Do they also offer heating options as well?
They
heating
do.
and cooling?
Those units both heat and cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much a standard thing.
That's a standard thing. They are what they call heat pumps, and they are designed to be very efficient and be able to produce nice heat at a low temperature.
Okay.
So what we find is a lot of people are going to that option, and they're utilizing them to replace, say, a hot water baseboard system or an electric heat baseboard system, which are rather expensive to operate in cost, you know, in terms of your bills to heat the home.
Right.
You know, these units can be 3 or 4 times more efficient, so it can really reduce the utilities. Also, add some central air to the house because these systems not having ductwork, adding central air to the house, doing away with window units, which are also, you know, bulky and expensive and loud to
Can't
operate.
set anything in front of them. Can't get close to them.
Yep.
Same thing with the baseboard heat. The baseboard heat, aside from the fact that, you know, the proximity you're supposed to have things to them, you know, the curtains, the furniture, which is obvious, but it's also very drying. It is a very dry heat, and I used to live in a house that had that. I was thankful for heat, but my goodness, it was dry in there, man. It was pretty bad.
Yeah,
you know?
it makes a difference.
With these options, they seem like they're almost like every 6 months to a year, there's some other innovation when it comes to this. I mean, central air has been what it has been for years. You know, it's ductwork, it's the big unit outside, and if you have vents, that's what you're going to have. If you have the ductwork, that's what you'll have. Yep. But with these, I don't know where and how and if this affects the future of air conditioning and heating as it pertains to people who have ductwork. But I'm sure the innovations that they're making with these mini split systems you're seeing some bleed over into this is standard in-home systems, right?
Yeah, so we're putting quite a few of these systems in for people who even have ductwork.
Okay.
You know, particularly if it's not, if the home's not very well balanced. You know, it's not uncommon to have an upstairs that gets super hot in the summertime.
Yep.
Or it might stay cold in the wintertime.
I'm going to pause you for just a second. You're talking about my house.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So this was a question I was going to ask you, and you're about to answer it. I know. So please continue.
Yeah. No. Super common for that to be the case. You know, in older homes, it was a matter of the ducts were designed for heating. You know, so they would pump a lot of hot air into the downstairs, and then kind of hope that it goes upstairs, right? Heat rise. So, but those duct systems weren't designed for cooling. You know, where the upstairs is naturally going to be warmer, it's going to need more air. It's going to be the reverse, more air upstairs in the summertime.
Right.
So, you know, we have a lot of people that are using the ductless units as a solution to put additional heating and cooling just in upstairs to supplement maybe what the existing system is doing for the downstairs.
So what I have is, and very similar to what you're talking about, I don't necessarily find that so we finished our basement out. It's a home that not even 10 years old right now. The basement is always cool, even obviously in the wintertime.
Yep.
It's cool. Now we have vents. When we did it, we tied into the current system.
Okay.
The problem is that I believe, and you would be able to speak more intelligently about this, that everything is being based off the temperature upstairs. So once the upstairs hits the whatever you set on the thermostat, regardless of whether downstairs has hit that yet, that I think that's the issue. Is that something people are using these mini splits for, or what is another option? Because I've heard different people tell me different things.
Yeah, that's another very good usage for the ductless mini splits. Is people will put them in their basements, and you're exactly right. Is you've got one system that's doing 2 floors. Well, they're 2 totally different climate zones.
Yeah.
That upstairs, it's not below grade, it's not below the surface, so it's it's getting exposure to heat and cold on the outside walls, and so it has different requirements for when it needs to heat or cool. And if that's where your control's located, then that's the zone it's going to focus on. It has no idea what's going on in the basement.
Right.
Whether it needs heating or doesn't need. It's going to run regardless based upon what's going on upstairs.
Okay.
So downstairs, yeah, you can add a ductless unit that will allow you to control that down there and keep your specific whatever temperature you like to keep there.
If you don't opt for the ductless, is there a component that can be added onto a current system? Because I can't imagine that I'm unique in this situation that I'm describing. Is there something else? Is there another solution?
There is. So it's called zoning. So your ductwork, since you have ductwork there, and if it's split up to where it's able to, distribute air onto one floor and to another floor separately, you can put in zone controls. So dampers that open close, then they're tied into a thermostat in each zone that will allow that equipment to push air to one or the other, depending on the demands in each.
Gotcha.
It gets a little bit more tricky. It's a little more difficult than just throwing that in there and calling it a day. Some equipment is capable of it, some is not.
Right.
Some ductwork is laid out to where you can do that, some not. So there's a lot of things that kind of have to line up in order for that to work out well.
If that does. So if it's a best case scenario for, let's just say you come and see my house and everything is your equipment will work with it, your duct workers run perfectly, everything lines up well. What would you say is the more affordable and the more preferable option?
Yeah, there's going to be some variables there as well. As far as cost goes, as long as it's fairly straightforward, the zoning is probably a little bit less, but a lot of things have to align.
Sure.
Right? The ductwork, the equipment,
Yep.
all those sort of things. Everything has to be accessible. A lot of basements get finished off and things are drywalled over so you can get to them.
Sure.
So, as long as you don't have to go tearing things apart, then it can be a fairly easy solution.
Okay.
But a lot of things have to line up.
Right.
And then with your ductless solution, it's probably going to be a little bit more, depending on. If it's one big open area, you can typically get away with one unit there.
Yeah.
If you are, if you have multiple rooms kind of split up, if you really want complete control over each area, you end up with multiple indoor units. So the price is going to go up a bit.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. So what are your service areas, Tim?
So we service pretty much all of Franklin County. Right now we're sitting in Greencastle, right? That's where our home base is here. So we pretty much travel about a 45-minute drive radius. So we'll cover up to, say, Shippensburg area, and we're going over to Carroll Valley, Fairfield. To our west, we're over in McConnellsburg and surrounding areas. And then we'll do the majority of Washington County as well in Maryland.
Very good. And now, how about financing? Because we're talking about it can get kind of pricey here. So what, if any, financing options do you offer at Premier HVAC?
Yeah, we offer different financing options depending on what everybody's looking for. We try to, have an affordable solution for, anything that we put out there. So it can be as little as a repair on the unit can be financed as little as $500. So $500 and up. If it's a repair for a furnace or air conditioner that's existing, we can even finance that. And then it goes all the way up to your replacement equipment, new equipment, and they're quite a wide range of pricing. But we have either 0% financing for those that are looking to utilize other people's money, as we like to call it, or we have a longer term, low fixed rate that offers a nice, affordable monthly payment.
Okay, And what are we looking for this time of year? This will be the last question that I'll ask you. This time of year, obviously super cold, in a cold snap right now as we speak. So what am I looking for performance-wise? What should I notice if something, I would say, you know what, that just might not be right? Because I think a lot of times what we do is, I am guilty of this, we tend to tell ourselves, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Because it seems like this insurmountable task to get something like that fixed. Obviously it isn't, but we all worry about that. So what would be the key markers that, hey, you might want to get that thing checked right now?
Yeah, so a couple key things to keep an eye out for. If your furnace is, if it's making a weird noise, if it's not keeping up to the thermostat temperature you have it set to, these are some pretty easy indicators. Most people, if you've been in your house for a little while, you know how your system operates and how it should feel and how it should sound. If something's off, most likely something's not quite right. So, it's best to be proactive. Get it checked out before it completely fails out. Or before you find out that there's a bigger issue that might be maybe costing me huge electric bills. So that would be another thing to look for is, especially if you have a heat pump system, right? So a heat pump system is all electric and it operates off of using the refrigerant that does your cooling to do your heating. Well, there's an emergency backup heat in that system that will kick on as needed when it's cold or if the heat pump is not functioning properly.
Right.
So if the heat pump's not functioning properly, you may not even notice it because the emergency heat's going to come on. It's going to keep the temperature up in the house. It's going to keep you warm. Your first place you're going to notice is in your electric bill. And you see, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Don't key into the dollar amount. It's more the usage amount. And typically, if you look at your usage amount on your electric bill, it'll say, hey, here's what you used last year. And you can compare it to this year. If it's a good bit higher, there's probably a problem going on.
Very good.
So that's a good thing to indicate there's something happening behind the scenes that you want to get checked out.
I think it's also, you could say, I've always said, but my doctor's told me before, when it comes to your body, no one knows your body better than you.
Yep.
So when something's wrong, you're going to know it. It's either something wrong or there isn't. Same thing a mechanic will tell you, well, hey, no one knows your car better than you. And I think with this as well, to your point early on, is you probably are going to notice if something's off. It's just going to bear itself out. You know your house, you know your system. You may not know how to replace it, you may not know how to work on it, but you certainly will know if it's just not living up to what it typically does. And that's happened to me a couple times. And I've just, my wife noticed one time and I noticed this most recent one. I'm just like, it just doesn't feel like it's warming, it's heating like it should. And to your point, the emergency heat was kicking on. Luckily, I noticed it. We had blown a fuse, and I was able to get it repaired. Now, it wasn't ultimately just the fuse that was blowing. There was a reason the fuse was blowing,
Right.
of course. But yeah, we did get it fixed. So we've been talking with Tim Stenger. He's the president owner of Premier HVAC Services. Tim, love to have you back on Let's Talk Tri-State, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be right back with more Let's Talk Tri-State, powered by Legends Bar in Chambersburg. Satisfy your sports fix at Legends Bar with game day specials and cold brews, Hollywell Avenue in Chambersburg.
Let's talk Tri-State.
If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Tri-State, call 717-597-9200 or email letstalk@921thegoat.com.